but we have two legendary names of the sport. Rocky Marciano, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, and Roy Jones. Hey, if you like this kind of content, how about subscribing to our channel if you haven't done that yet? Do us that solid and take care of that business. Subscribe to the channel, hit the alarm bell, that way you get all of our drops. Also, I'm trying to get to my first 1,000 subscribers, so if you can help along with that, go ahead and do that too. So,
what are we waiting for?
Yo, this is Trav with Yo Trav Sports Bag. I am back at it again today with you in the world of sports, and we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty in a moment. If you've watched me in previous episodes, you know I've been doing a lot of boxing lately because the boxing gods have been great to us this year, 2022. There have been other sports I've spoken about. If you wanted to check out our playlist and you'll see it just as much. But once again, boxing has been good to us, and I have to be good to boxing. The analytics says you want me to be good to boxing. I will continue to talk about other sports as well, but right now there is a comparison and contrast I think I have to get down to, because I know why you're here, and you know why you're here. You saw the thumbnail, and that thumbnail said Roy Jones Jr. versus Rocky Marciano at cruiserweight. That's right, at cruiserweight, Rocky Marciano and the legendary Roy Jones. I wanted to put them together in a scenario. Fantasy nonetheless, but interesting all together. So I wanted to get down to this, and before I do that, let me do some explaining. There's some explaining I have to do right here. All shout outs to Ricky Ricardo. Let me get down to the nitty gritty on this and let you know why I chose cruiserweight. Cruiserweight is the class Rocky Marciano would be in today, because even as heavyweight champion of the world during his reign, he was no more than 190 pounds, so he fought practically as a cruiserweight. He fought light heavyweights who rose up to his level, and they were still higher than him in terms of weight. So Rocky Marciano would have been a cruiserweight today. Roy Jones Jr. has fought at cruiserweight enough to have enough of a sample size to see what he may have done at cruiserweight against Rocky Marciano. Now let's get this straight as well. This isn't a prime for prime fight. Obviously it isn't, because if so, Roy Jones would be at about 168 pounds. Even at 175, he was not in his prime. He did his best work at 168. He made his legacy moving up, ultimately winning a piece of the heavyweight championship against John Ruiz and not Lennox Lewis. But nevertheless, he still was able to get it done. But he did dabble at cruiserweight for quite some time, to where we can get somewhat of an idea of this kind of a matchup. I know I can't make everybody happy. I don't think these kinds of matchups makes most people happy, but I'm still going to venture out and try to put something together that's compelling and thought-provoking for those who love the world of boxing, the comparison and contrast, the fantasy matchups, all of those things that we do in boxing rooms, chats, etc., to try to bring the past to the present or vice versa. This isn't a prime for prime fight. Let me tell you again, not a prime for prime fight. So the result is probably going to change just because of that. But we have two legendary names of the sport. Rocky Marciano, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, and Roy Jones, perhaps the greatest athlete to ever set foot inside of a boxing ring. So let's put them together and see what we get with this comparison and contrast right now. This is as real and objective, I think, as I could possibly be, based on them just being the same weight, instead of saying, how about Rocky at 175, which he never fought at light heavyweight. He was never 168 in terms of his professional career, so we can't say that. But they did both coexist in terms of weight at 190. So let's do this. This is a cruiserweight battle between the two. So considering the circumstances, what other way could I have done it? All right, we're not going to take a one-off from John Ruiz and just use that as the reason why Roy should fight Rocky Marciano. So we'll take this in terms of the common fights they had during the time they fought at the cruiserweight level. That's what it is right now. So it's not a debate of convenience. Roy fought John Ruiz at 193 pounds. So that's not too far off from the cruiserweight ranks. Come on now, let's be serious. It's not that far away from the light heavyweight ranks. I mean, Michael Spinks went from 175 to 200 pounds to fight Larry Holmes the first time. And the rematch, he came in at 205 pounds. So that gives you a bit of perspective. Roy Jones did go up in weight, and he looked phenomenal against John Ruiz, not Lennox Lewis. Another argument for another day. But here's the comparison and contrast. He fought more than once at cruiserweight, so I think it's still a fair comparison. So let's get down to what it's all about. Roy was not the same fighter at cruiserweight, so I'm not saying that. And as I said earlier, this isn't an argument of convenience. This isn't prime for prime fight because Roy was not in his prime as a cruiserweight, but he did enough there, and he did enough in his career. Let's make the comparison. He was KO'd 3 times as a cruiserweight. We do know that, and unfortunately, that's part of boxing. Rocky had never lost before. Rocky fought a bunch of fighters who were probably older, but to offset that, he lacked experience himself. And these legendary fighters that he had fought, those fighters had a lot of experience. Those fighters were heavier than him when they fought him, and he still managed to beat them. Roy Jones had the reflexes of no one we've ever seen in the boxing ring, and that includes Muhammad Ali in terms of being an athlete. We saw what he was able to do, but that was at the lighter weights. We saw the types of guys he fought at cruiserweight, and he was not the same guy. But even at light heavyweight, we saw Roy Jones lay against the ropes a lot. And then still, he was able to pick people apart. He was still able to kind of frustrate his opponents. He was still able to use his lead left hook and stun his opponents. He did the same thing at 168 pounds. Eric Luca, who he fought down in Jacksonville, Florida, he was a super middleweight, and Roy laid against the ropes for a little while in that fight. So Roy had a tendency of doing it. Whether it was part of a strategy or whether it was part of him just being tired, we probably don't know, but we saw the results. Roy was a heck of a fighter and still continues to be a legendary fighter in the game of boxing. In analysis and just looking at his videos, teaching the newer generation what not to do because they just can't do what he was able to do. Rocky Marciano did not know or have a lot of skill, overall skill, the skills that you really see, like the jab. If you could find how many times he threw a jab in his entire career, I mean, there may be a bonus involved for you. Rocky just came to slug and beat you to a pulp and get out of the ring unscathed. But while doing so, his 72-inch reach allowed him to get to your body and to your head, but he had to really fight his way inside in order to get it done. We saw it against top fighters who had top skills, like Ezra Charles, former light heavyweight, then heavyweight champion. Yeah, we could use Joe Louis and say that Joe Louis was old. We could use Ezra Charles and say the same thing. We could use Jersey Joe Walcott, say the same thing. But he took care of the business that a lot of people couldn't take care of against these same fighters. Roy Jones was absolutely phenomenal as an athlete, but when the athletic gifts left, we saw there was a different Roy Jones. We saw even against Lou DeVal. He went down against Lou DeVal at 175, which is closer to his prime at 168 than he was at cruiserweight and moving up to heavyweight and coming back down. So we have to understand that there is a true comparison to be made. What could Roy Jones do to Rocky Marciano as a cruiserweight based on what we saw him doing as a cruiserweight? Rocky Marciano just came straight ahead. There were no secrets there. He's almost like Joe Frazier. You did not have to look for him. He was there for you. And the openings were there for you as well if you wanted to try to expose him. Rocky was knocked down himself twice in his career because of the openings he had in his rudimentary skill. But this is one of those cases, and if you heard me before, this is one of those cases in which skills do not pay the bills when it came to Rocky. Grit, determination, things you can't teach, those intangibles. Those are the things that paid the bills because the guys who had the skill tried to cash in on him, and he left this game undefeated. You can say what you want about his undefeated record, whether it was deserving, whether it was against the right people, whether it was a different era. He fought when he fought, and we cannot change that. Roy Jones would use the lead left hook against Rocky, okay? He pot shot a lot of fighters. That's what Roy Jones did, whether in his lighter weights or as a cruiserweight. When he had the opportunity to pot shot, that's what he did. That was the way he fought. Roy did not move around the ring a lot, and I think that works its way into Rocky Marciano cornering Roy on a number of occasions. We saw what happened when Glenn Johnson got in on Roy against the ropes. We saw what happened with Antonio Tarver as a light heavyweight, getting Roy to the ropes. I don't like what happens to Roy when he gets to the ropes, especially at cruiserweight, especially with someone like Rocky Marciano right in front of his face, trying to get the job done, because that's all Rocky knew to do. Take care of business. He did not worry about your jab. He did not worry about your lead left hook. He didn't care how fast that lead left hook came. He did not care how stinging your jab was. The determination he had in his mind, which was unparalleled, was, I'm coming to get you, sucker. And he did it. 49 suckers were hit and just disappeared because of Rocky Marciano. This may seem like a one-sided argument, but I'm telling you exactly what it is. If you can find lies in this, you let me know in the comments, because I know the comments can bubble up, especially when it comes down to Rocky Marciano. And once again, Ezra Charles, a light heavyweight. Archie Moore, a light heavyweight. Those guys are great light heavyweights who were heavier than Rocky Marciano, and they couldn't put him away. And let's not forget that Archie Moore was one of the biggest and best knockout artists of all time in all of boxing, and he could not put Rocky away. Go with his age all you want. You weren't talking about his age when he did knock Rocky down. He just couldn't finish the job. He begged for that fight. He knew he was old when he begged for the fight. He got the fight. He did not get the win. And that's why we're here right now, able to make those comparisons and contrasts. Rocky was knocked down by Moore, as I said, and he was able to get up. He had the resilience. When you get up against Roy Jones at 190 pounds of cruiserweight, call it what you want, is he going to be able to finish Rocky? No one else was. One of the hardest punchers in light heavyweight history couldn't do it. And Archie Moore, so what was Roy going to do? Lay against the ropes? And we saw in all of those other knockouts, it was Roy Jones against the ropes, whether it's strategic or forced to do so because he could not hold up in the middle of the ring as he had done in the past. The athleticism was gone. The reflexes weren't what they used to be. The power was still there, but the speed wasn't there. So that's why I believe it kind of seems pretty unanimous. Rocky Marciano knocks out Roy Jones within 8 rounds. That's what I'm saying. Within 8 rounds. If you don't like that, leave it in the comments. And as you saw in my previous videos, if you go to the comments, I answer you. I give you answers. Answers you may want, answers you may not want, but you're going to hear it from me. So tell me what you think about this video. I have other videos here. Go to the playlist. You can check them out. There's other sports as well for people who want to see or listen to other sports. And there will be more other sports as well, but boxing is just giving us an embarrassment of riches right now. Roy spent a lot of times in the ropes, and that's where the result came from. You cannot stay on the ropes against Rocky Marciano. You have to be active. If you're not active, he eats you alive, and we've seen it time and time again. Rocky is a big dog. Roy is a great dog, but at cruiserweight, Rocky all the way. KO in 8. I'm Trav with Yo Trav Sports Bag. I hope to continue to see you, continue to talk to you in the comments, and continue to bring you content like this and other sports. Until next time.